returned to school 10 years ago as a single mom. I had an 8-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-year-old at the time. And my motivation for becoming a teacher was because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to actually be able to reach out and help a child. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I knew what it felt like to be stuck. When I was 14 years old, I was couch surfing my way across Chatham, Kent. When I was 13, I ran away. I got on a bus and went to a town called Hope, BC, where I camped along the Fraser River for a week before I got hauled back to Ontario. By 15, I was disengaged. I didn't see the value of education. I was struggling to pay my rent, and I dropped out of high school. I didn't think that there was anything that I could do about my own situation, and I didn't want any of my students to feel that way. I wanted to empower them. I wanted them to realize they don't need to be passive bystanders in their own life, that they absolutely could do something. And so I took a deep breath, and I said, of course we can help.
So much of Jen's story really touched me there. So many things resonate. It's obvious that she's determined to connect with her students and to do it in more authentic ways, but she really doesn't know how this is going to go, right? So that deep breath that she describes was her own taking risks, giving up some of the control about how learning was going to play out. What an opportunity for her to model to her students how she's a learner with them in the journey. And, you know, I love Seymour Papert's story about curriculum, and I think he'd maybe be happier to see global competencies coming to the forefront, because he said it's really interesting that we put children in classrooms with expert learners, us as teachers, but they never get to see us learn something new, and how we rob students from seeing that process. So what an opportunity for her to tap into the inter and interpersonal skills that will be needed to explore an authentic, community-connected problem. She doesn't know the answer. What could her students learn from taking on this big problem that would transfer into other parts of their lives, even around their own well-being and how they're going to become agents in their own lives, as she mentioned? How is she going to innovate her curriculum expectations to meet this new challenge? And a lot of the work that came into the foundation document came from Fulham and Langworthy's work, A Rich Seam, which if you're interested in this, it's a really good read. And they actually talk about partnerships, authentic learning, and using our digital tools to help this. But you know this already, because again, in your board improvement plan, you ask, how are we going to design our learning experiences in partnership with our students based on their strengths and needs? So let's see what Jen does next. She begins with her first reach out to the community, first of many, by contacting the food bank, and they decide to visit.
So after we had checked out the food bank and gone into the deep freeze in the warehouse, Brenda took us into the kitchen where the students had an opportunity to actually help out.
We thought we couldn't do bulking, but it actually meant taking a bigger amount and putting it into smaller amounts for the people that were coming to the food bank.
So the students were able to bulk tea bags. They took them out of the cases and they put them into Ziploc bags, 12 in a bag. We talked about how many tea bags we had in total. So if you have 10 bags of 12, how many tea bags do you have? And we just tied math into the process as well while we were in the kitchen. It was a great day. The students were excited. Some of our parents were really excited to join us as well, especially those that utilized the food bank, because they had a better understanding of why some of the questions were asked of them. And we returned to school, and we had so much information that we wanted to share. We were in the middle of our persuasive writing unit, and we decided to create public service announcements, and you saw one of them just before I came up. And our goal was either to persuade our audience to help out at their local food bank or to educate them about how the food bank worked.
So one of the questions we think about is how are we going to make sure that our curriculum is embedded in some of our authentic projects? And Jen really started with her curriculum and then reached out to her community experts as she went on with this journey.
So students got into groups and they were working on their storyboards, and I realized very quickly, this was early in the year, that we needed some help with oral communication. That was definitely going to be an issue. And so I contacted a local radio host, Greg Hetherington. I sent him an email and I explained to him what we were doing and that we needed an expert. We needed to pull in some help. And Greg was more than happy to come in and help us. And so I went over the oral language curriculum expectations that I planned to cover, and we had our success criteria done up as well. So he knew exactly where we were heading with the project, and Greg came in and he spoke with my students as well as the grade 8 students. And so the students went through the process of going through and making sure that their script matched their pictures and their words, and we covered media literacy expectations as well. And then when we were done, we wanted to share them, because doing this work is only valuable if we're actually raising awareness. And so we went on to our Twitter, and I think at that time we had about 400 followers, and we tweeted them out. And before we did that, we analyzed, we went in
blown away to hear these grade 2 and 3s analyzing their Twitter data and finding out the same kinds of things. Pretty impressive. So I'm not going to show any more clips of Jen. You need to go and watch it. But here's what happened. Her next step was, one of the students came up with the idea that it's not a very nice place to visit, the food bank, and it's not very beautiful. They wanted to create a kids section, but the people at the food bank thought might be with germs and things like that, might not be the best thing. So could they create some art? So again, Jen reaches out, not an artist just yet, she would say about herself. She reached out to an artist, a couple of them came in, did some work with her students, and they created pieces of art, which as you can see are amazing. They created and measured and planned out an installation at the food bank of their gallery and created that. And then Jen thought, okay, this is pretty good. I've had a lot of bang for my buck with this project. We've done literacy, we've done media literacy, we've done our art, we've created our PSAs, we've done lots of math. We should just be finished. And the student said to her, no, Miss Kay, we want to actually grow some food for the food bank. And she said, oh, no, really? No, I think, let's move on to other things. And they said, no, we really think that's the thing to do. So again, realizing that these students, even though they're from Chatham, many of them had never been to a farm because they're from more urban places, Jen reaches out to a horticulturist that she knows, and he comes into class, and since people had never been to a farm, he brings a big shower curtain, which they put in the middle of the classroom, and he dumps soil. So if you've ever taught grade 3, you know this is good. We have soil in our curriculum studies. And so they began to work with the soil and plant. And I have to tell you, Jen went on with this grade 2-3 class. This is their third year. She's now got a 5-6. One of the students is still in her class. You know how it falls out when you're teaching your split grades. And they are now 9 classes strong at her school, still planting outdoor gardens, connected with the food bank, and students are really feeling as though they're a part of that exciting work. So what about the ministry and what policy and support documents say? So as we keep, we start to consider the global competencies, it's not about starting from scratch, right? That would be invention. We're about innovating. And so one of the things we've begun to do in my unit is take a look at the achievement chart and the curriculum and our policy around assessment and see what connections are being made already. So when I look at the achievement chart and the areas of our 4 areas that we're already looking towards for assessment, they closely tie to global competencies. It makes sense that we can innovate those things. What about growing success and our learning skills and work habits section? What would need to change in your expectations around learning skills and work habits if your students were connecting globally with the world? What role does digital citizenship, for example, play into our responsibility now? How can we innovate that piece and add in some of the new, very impactful competency work that we're doing, right? What other things have you got that are telling you to innovate in this way? So a monograph that's fairly new called Literacy in a Connected World will give you lots of practical examples of how you can reach out with your students and connect them to the world in curriculum-centered ways. We also have community-connected experiential learning, so you'll have the links to that. And one recent video that we did was from your neighboring board, Upper Grand, where a teacher is actually holding cross-disciplinary course with math and history in high school, located right at the Dufferin County Museum. So students are working with primary sources and the archivists and historians there at the museum to study veterans and creating content for the museum, publicly shared. So there's lots of ways that we can connect. When we think about the Adolescent Literacy Guide, and a fantastic document, again, when we see, think, express, reflect, we can see how aligned much of this work is already with global competencies. So you probably think, how can I do this? Maybe I don't have a lot of technology or experience. Could I take the risks that Jen has taken? Maybe you already are, and I'm going to get a chance to hear about it today and share those out. But there's a lot of things that we can think about in terms of the competencies. So we're hearing a lot about coding or programming in students and maker spaces. We can think about, what is it about a maker space that lets us balance cognitive skills with inter and intrapersonal skills? What is it that makes it really authentic for students? You know, Lobo is 50 years old this year in 2017, so coding is not new, but people have been inventing different ways for students to access programming, and our tablets and our Chromebooks, now we have that availability, so that's pretty exciting. The other way that I would suggest, and all these links will be here for you, another way that you could start into this world of authentic projects is the way I got started, and that is with an organization, and there are a number of them, that would help you kind of get a framework together for a project. So one that I have tried many projects from, or at least 3 or 4, is IRN. It's the International Education and Research Network. It's the oldest network that we're aware of. It started in 1988, connecting teachers who want to do this kind of work with students. So they have many different projects. My class connected with Australia with the Teddy Bear Project, where we sent a bear to them and they sent a bear to us, and we blogged. I did that through email and blogging. Blogging's much better because the kids get immediate feedback. So they blogged about what the bears were doing in their visiting countries. So all about learning about Australia, and you can see it not very clearly there, but that's a lot of writing for grade 2 students, and they really loved the blog, so that sold me on that. I've also done art miles with my school, where the grade 6 teacher connected with a school in another country. In our case, it was Japan. And we decided on some themes for a mural, and Japan painted the first half, that classroom, and then they sent it to us, and we completed the second half of the mural, and then it went back to them for an art exhibition. My Hero project is another really good one from there, where you actually develop success criteria on what a hero is, and in all kinds of content areas like science and arts and athletes and all kinds of things like that. And kids make films or stories and share those back. So there's lots of really awesome projects in there, and you can start your own too. In Ontario here, we've got some wonderful educators, and you might be involved in some of their projects. We have the Digital Human Library. So a teacher, Lee Castle from Avon-Maitland District, just thought that she would like to connect classrooms with those experts like Jen was mentioning. So she started a human library where you can go on and request an expert to come into your class via Skype or Google Hangouts and talk to your students. There's a Global Dignity Day that happens in October all across the world, and your school or class can jump into that kind of an activity and connect in a video conference with Ottawa, where Justin Trudeau is usually a participant in that, so that's exciting. A Kid's Guide to Canada, a teacher from the east part of Ontario, Kathy Beach, started this one for our Canada 150 celebration, and it's place-based learning. So you would create some kind of a report, image, movie, whatever you wanted, presentation, and you tell the rest of Canadian students where you're from and what it's like to live in your place, in your community. There are several Indigenous projects as well that are, and quad blogging, different ones that I've given you the links to. The other one that got started from a couple of teachers in Simcoe County and one in Northern Ontario, on Manitoulin Island actually, is Craft Reconciliation. That was year one, and this year it's called Canada Craft. And Wab Canoe put out a challenge to students, mainstream, what he called mainstream students and Indigenous students, to tell their story about what they believe reconciliation is. So these classes have connected the first year to discuss what truth and reconciliation means to them and to share those ideas and learn about each other. And this year they're having Google Hangouts during class time where kids can connect from all over Canada. So there are so many fantastic projects that you can be a part of. And I guess one of the things that I want to make sure that to leave you with today is, and I guess coming from a school board and going to the ministry, there's a couple of things that really resonate with me about that experience. And that is how often I sit around at meetings and round tables, and people at ministry really want teachers to feel they have the freedom to take a look at our really great curriculum and to innovate the heck out of it, really. So we know we have overall expectations. We know we have a lot of specific expectations, and we know we have a lot in brackets, right? And so that the things that are in the brackets, I think are where we can really make our innovation happen, right? I'm seeing some nods. So when I was programming with my grade 1s and 2s, there were really great connections to math in my curriculum that programming and computational thinking allowed me to access. So I didn't have to stick with them. I could add those things into the brackets. And I think when we revise curriculum, we would hope that would be there. Also, there were lots of ways I was already exploring collaboration and critical thinking and learning skills and metacognitive skills. Learning to learn was already a big piece of what I was doing. So when I see the global competencies coming to the fore, I think it's really important for us to remember that we've got this. In Ontario, we have a lot of already policy and support documents that back us up in that area. So I don't think you need to be afraid of that. That's one thing I learned, is that that's what we want to see happening. And then just to end with, I guess, the new piece for me is this idea that, you know, student well-being is really at the front of our minds these days, and our own well-being. And when I heard Jen's story about trying to give her students that experience of being in control of their lives and solving really complicated problems, I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's what our students are going to be faced with and are faced with right now. I mean, we just have to look at the news today and know that. So, you know, I think we have to keep all of those things in mind: our well-being, our curriculum, our jobs, our curriculum and assessment that we're tasked with as Ontario teachers. We are also needing to think about our well-being and where that fits. So the idea of the clouds especially make a big impact on me, because bringing in interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, I think, are where it's at for me. The competencies, I think, vary when you see different frameworks, but if you are thinking about deeper learning, you'll get to those competencies. And the other thing I want to leave you with is how when I started to get a chance to look at some of the international research, and I left you in your slides with a couple of really good resources there, Ontario is doing a great job worldwide. And I didn't always hear that as a teacher. You know, I heard that more through TLLP projects. So I want to leave you with that message that the ministry thanks you really for all that you do, and we are leading in many ways in the area of deeper learning. Our competencies are part of discussions that are happening Canada-wide with something called the Council of Ministers of Education in Canada, and so we're part of co-leading that group. So thank you so much for everything that you do for kids. And I'm really looking forward to talking with all of you, and share with me some of those projects that you're involved in so that I can share them out when I go to other places. So thank you and enjoy your day.
Did anybody have any questions or comments for Brenda? Yes?
I heard that in the UK they have a digital curriculum, and I wondered if you heard talk of that for Ontario. Or...
Yeah, I think that's the discussions for sure are happening, and we know curriculum review takes quite a long time. It's on a cycle, and that's why I say don't wait. Get those skills in the brackets. Get that stuff in the brackets. Get doing it. Don't wait for the ministry to come out with the curriculum. But yeah, we're aware that we're aware that many other jurisdictions are adding coding into the curriculum, and you know, I could give you my personal thought on that, but I think computational thinking is really important, and I'm not sure having every student coding every year is what we want to do to get at that, but as an option for teaching authentic applications for math, it was awesome for me in my classroom. So the ministry has it on the radar, and we put out the coding resource recently, as well as promoting the hour of code as a way for people to get into that. But hopefully the hour of code becomes, you know, the way of code, and not just 1 hour a year kind of thing. So,
any other questions? I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the point about coding. So that's an initiative recently that we've undertaken in our board. Just this past year with our elementary skills competition, we had 100 students compete in the coding category from grade 4 to grade 8. That was Michelle and Jessica that were the co-chair of that. And really, we're looking at coding as a way of students demonstrating their learning. It's just not a technical skill, but they can use the coding to tell stories, to show dialogue in terms of their understanding of math concepts. So instead of doing a presentation, coding will just be another way that they can communicate what they've learned in their subject. So that's really the approach we're taking. We're thrilled with the interest from students and teachers. And the key thing there was it was a learning partnership between teachers and students as far as PD was concerned. That's the first time we did that, and we're going to continue to explore that because the teachers and students that participated in that really enjoyed the experience. The other example I'm just going to provide of deeper learning and that I've been exposed to recently in our board was a group of educators and students at Blessed Sacrament. And the focus is really math in terms of our technology learning fund and our ministry project. But the students are working on a social studies project, and they've decided on their topic of inquiry and research. But as part of that research, they're supposed to design an artifact which represents the topic they've chosen. So they're designing coins, necklaces, some of them are doing puzzle pieces. And so what they're doing is they're using 3D design software, Tinkercad, to actually create those objects. So whether they realize it or not, they're actually using math concepts in the design and the manipulation of those objects. So we have the student-led inquiry, where they decide on a topic that they're researching. We have the transferable skills, because now they're applying concepts like translation, rotation, transformation, as they use 3D design software. We're going to have them use Nimbus, which is screen capture software. So as they're doing the design and manipulation of those objectives, they're talking about the math concepts that they're applying and how that's helped them in terms of the design of their artifact. Then there's the community partnership, where we have some person, Jeremy Hedges, who has a 3D design company, who has brought some of his staff in to help facilitate the 3D design skills of the students, and really exposing them to the global and social impact of that and how he uses that technology to produce prosthetic hands, replace coral reef that's been damaged in our oceans. So we're really trying to extend a lot of the examples that Brenda was sharing with us into our classroom on a more regular basis. So hopefully we're going to continue to see that grow, because I know it's happening out there, and we want to continue to celebrate that and move forward in that area. Any other final questions or comments before we give a brief description of open spaces and then look at the sessions that are available for today? Okay. So Michelle, do you want to come down? I'll just hook back up the laptop. And thanks very much to Brenda for that presentation and really highlighting the different areas that we want to engage our students in and how we can use innovative approaches to leverage those experiences for our students.
Brenda mentioned about the industry resource for coding. If you have questions about that, just approach me and send me an email and I can direct you to that. So that's a resource that came out in the past months. So if anyone's looking for that, just contact me.
And I believe it's Carlos who's going to be doing a session on coding as part of our open spaces. So if you have the open spaces, oops. No. Yeah. This is not detected. Okay. Yeah. So we're just going to our open spaces document, and so Michelle's just going to give a short explanation of what open spaces is, because it's a bit of a newer format in our board, but we want to see this happening more broadly, even staff or school-driven PD, and then we'll talk about the different sessions that are being offered. They don't need to come up, they'll just stand up and do it.
Okay, I'm certainly not going to go through all of the document here, but just to point out that the open space concept is really about knowledge building as a whole group, but also about your own personal learning. So we have a number of sessions set up, and you've probably, hopefully had a look at some of the ones that are there. You can add new ones. I think we have spaces. We also will likely have some spaces, rooms that aren't being used. So if you join into the room, and I said this is about your own learning, you go into the room and you find that it's not the session you were thinking of, and you want to move to another room, do it. Absolutely do it. or ask the presenter about things that you are interested, or the facilitator, sorry, that you're interested in learning about. And also, if you find that there are no sessions that appeal to you, don't hesitate to say, there's a couple of you that want to learn about something that sort of sparked during the beginning of one of the sessions. Go and find a spot and do your own learning. So it doesn't have to be something that's here. You can absolutely add sessions on, or just find a spot and do your own learning. So any of the presenters that are presenting today, okay, there's no one here in Alumni Theater. In room 204, we have Jamie Rodriguez. Is he here? Does he want to do a quick? Okay. And we have Beth Ann next in room 207, if she wants to just stand up and do a quick blurb about her session.
Hi. I've been using Dr. Tender and I found it really useful, so if you want to come there and learn about it. Also, you've been doing Bluebird or Bluebird, I'd love to chat with you.
Okay, in 208, I'm going to be facilitating a section that is around creating and communicating with comic strips. We're going to be using the new Pixton tool to do that. So this is going to be a lot of learning as well. I'm not an expert in any way on that topic. And next we have Jess Weaver. If you want to stand up and tell us a little bit about your session.
I'll be in room 209. In the first session, I'll be talking about 3D printing, the design process. We'll be taking a look at Tinkerpad and having lots of time to play with that. And in session 2, I'll be talking about Blogger and just that whole idea of student voice.
Okay, in room 210, we have John Ertl. John, if you are here, if you want to talk about your session.
I kind of looked at a lot of great today, and I thought, I know a lot of us using those things, but I thought if we kind of focus the conversation just a little more down to how are we using those in our classrooms with students that need accommodations and modifications.
Okay, I like it. Great focus on pedagogy there. And okay, we have Roland, and Roland is in room 211. Go ahead, Roland.
We're going to be talking about using social media to connect with your students and your parents, and more importantly, how you can use it to engage students in pedagogy that you're going through in the classroom.
Okay, then in room 212, we have Sean Kritz.
We're going to discuss some of the tools you can use to communicate with parents, looking at things like Remind or the Guardian feature in Google, and whether they're effective or whether they're even safe for us to be using. So I'm not an expert by any means in any of this, but people can bring ideas that they're using and we can discuss to see which are most effective.
Okay, room 213, we have Katrina. Okay, she might be setting up. In 214, we have Ben McKinnon. Okay, in 215, we have Ferdinand.
So I'm just going to spend some time exploring some of the audio, photo, and video apps that we can use to capture students' communication, collaboration, and creativity. I'm not an expert in any of those apps either, but there's a variety of things that we can explore and get a better understanding of how we can use them with our students. And I really like the fact that the people who are leading the sessions are telling people they're not experts. So if you decide that there's something that's of interest to you, you don't have to be an expert. If there's an open space, just put your name down, say what you're interested in exploring, and then people who have a similar interest can come and join you, because we do have some open rooms. Yeah. Michael, do you want to speak quickly to your?
Yes, we're going to be talking about virtual reality and what it looks like in the classroom. We'll be looking at Google Expeditions and also how students can create their own virtual reality and share it in the classroom and comment on each other's virtual reality creations.
Okay. Is Carlos here? No? So Carlos is going to be doing coding, and I think he's referring to some of the resources that Brenda highlighted. There's the EduGains coding resource for teachers. And then there was Katrina. What was Katrina focusing in on? Katrina is going to be focusing in on getting started with clickers. So real-time formative assessment, she's doing that in room 213. Jamie Rodriguez is looking at the basic Google Suite tools and how you can use them to enhance and transform teaching and learning. Did we miss anybody? I don't think so. Okay, so at the bottom there are, I think there's one open computer lab, there's some open classrooms, there's open spaces in the halls. So as soon as that session is done, we're gonna have 45 minutes beginning at 9:30. Then we have a repeat. So some people will be offering the same sessions again from 10:15 to 11. If you want, I think there's, yeah. Shelly, did you want to talk a little bit about what you want to do in room 214 there?
The question is, how can digital tools such as D2L, Google, e-learning, these kinds of things be used in a manner that respects and recognizes Canadian copyright? So how can teaching staff find images that are copyright safe, videos, newspaper articles, all that kind of stuff?
I'll be doing a session in room 208 looking at doing online feedback as opposed to having students print out work that saves some paper, everybody. And so this is going to be an option for you if you've never done feedback online. We're going to look at some options for doing that.
Okay. Yeah, so then from 9:30 to 10:15 are those sessions highlighted in blue. And then from 10:15 to 11, the sessions highlighted in red will be our second round of open spaces. And then that'll be it at 11 because people need to get back to their schools for the school-based PD in the afternoon. Okay, is there any questions? So on your way down, you can hit room 232, which is on the left. Grab a quick snack, something to drink. So we're here at Alumni Hall, and then as you proceed, there's 232, and then there's all your classrooms on the second floor for the open spaces conferences. Thanks everybody for coming today, and I hope you enjoy the learning.